Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Rosie here. Today we're going to have more of a kind of an in-depth discussion about the upcoming DS nerf. Uh, we all know it's great, and I've covered before why it's good, and then in my other videos, like this perk was like 6 perks in one. To understand why this is so good, we have to go into it just a little bit. Okay, so the current Decisive Strike, okay, basically how it works right now, okay, is that when the killer is applying pressure and downing survivors, basically, when you get unhooked as a survivor gets off the hook, okay, that survivor now has 60 seconds to be the most destructive force on the entire team. Okay, 60 seconds. Because as we've discussed before, picking that survivor up into getting DS'd is a crippling thing that destroys the game's overall balance. All it takes is one decisive strike to lose a game. All it takes is one. So, when you're sitting there, all 4 of your survivor opponents have decisive strike. Every one of them is a force at different times. Because this quote-unquote once per game usage perk can be used by all 4 survivors. So that brings the 4 times a game to a maximum, that brings the once per game up to a maximum 4 times per game. However, that's just hitting the decisive strike. The net benefit of having DS for 60 seconds can be provided maximum 8 times a game. So 1 minute, that's 8 minutes potentially of immunity that DS grants the survivor team throughout the match. Potentially 8 minutes of combined total immunity granted by DS and killer's 12 hooking. That's about half the match that at least somebody is running around immune to you. That is fucking insanity. When you really look at it, that's fucking insanity. So you're sitting here doing the gen, you're invincible, can't be hooked again. When we say that you're invincible, you're using it as a shield, you can't be hooked. The win condition cannot be advanced further upon you. Okay, slugging is not the win condition. You can say, oh, I can still be slugged. Slugging is not the win condition. The win condition is not being advanced. Slugging is an alternative win condition where if you can get all 4 survivors down, then you can one-hook them all and win the game. So, slugging one guy technically advances an alternative win condition that isn't very good on most characters. Slow, you're not going to be really able to pull it off. If only a very few select characters on the roster are actually trying to slug to get their wins. That would be Oni, Twins, Myers, Nurse. The biggest ones. And then other characters can do it. Every character can do it situationally. But all in all, those are the 4 biggest characters that are trying to actually do a slug game consistently. Okay, but that's beside the point. Okay, so you're running around. When you have Decisive Strike, you can't have the killer's main win condition advanced upon you. Okay, this grants you an invitation to do several stupid things. Not respecting the killer's presence is one. Using DS to just sit there and slam a gen, or cleanse a hex totem, or anything just like that, anything body blocking, taking hits that you shouldn't have to take. Some people with DS will willingly just go down in order to trigger their decisive strike usage game. And then once you actually hit your decisive strike, Scott John has done this math, where it's some huge 45-second benefit potentially for hitting your decisive strike. Okay? And that would be all fine and dandy. The DS is allowed to be a huge waste of time if the perk is deserved. If the killer is actually tunneling, by all means, decisive strike them. That's not what we're trying to say here. The problem here is that when you are you can't be hooked again for that 60 seconds, and then you get down with 55 seconds, and the killer's hooked 2 people since then, and then you still DS them. That's a bunch of shit. That's a bunch of fucking crap. So, what has this nerf done to it exactly? Okay? Decisive Strike now only works if you haven't progressed the game in any way. So no more doing gens, no unhooking. That's another big one, where survivors will be on the hook, and everyone will be injured, but it's okay because the person has Decisive Strike with 30 seconds left and borrowed time. So they go, and then that person gets off the hook, and that person has Decisive Strike. It's a big pain in the ass, so the killer's left in a situation where, boom, the guy with DS is down, and then you can't hook him because he's got DS. The other guy's got borrowed and DS. What's the killer do in that situation? It's all big fuck you to the killer, and I'm glad that this all is fucking leaving the game and going away. Now, there's a lot more counterplay you have to DS. If so, that hook shit is done. You can't cheese rescues like that. And then, if you hook somebody and barbecue chili goes off, and you see that there's all 3 survivors are on a gen, there's no DS in play, bro. There's no DS in play. Wonderful. Just absolutely gorgeous. So barbecue chili just got a lot better because of this. And then, additionally, let's talk about those pesky DSs, the ones we don't like, where like the guy hasn't been hooked for about 55 seconds. It's the very, very last opportunity for you to actually get DS'd. Guys progress the game, you down them, pick them up, you still get DS'd after hooking 1 or 2 people. Okay? If that happens to you in the current, in this new DS, if you do that, and someone hasn't been hooked for about 55 seconds, that survivor was choosing to be dead weight for that 55 seconds and not do anything. So they sat there and didn't do anything. They didn't progress the game whatsoever. Okay, so if there's one guy on a hook, and then there's one guy on a hook, alright, the other guy was just saved, and so there's another guy that has to come in, and then the kill. So, like, there's 3 survivors being pressured. Okay, which means there's only 1 guy doing a generator. And then, and by all, this is going to be much better. The progression that survivors are able to do is significantly less. Okay? If they want to have their invincibility shield, they're sacrificing objective completion time. And that is much better. That makes these types of situations where, I don't know if he has Decisive Strike. You know those situations, killer players, where it's like, does he have DS or not? If he has DS, he wasted his time and wasn't really doing anything for the game. So that 5 seconds you're stunned is now no longer as bad. So it's actually okay to challenge more Decisive Strikes. The perk no longer, it has to be respected as much. Because if you haven't downed the guy, it's like, well, okay, if I pick him up and he DSs me, he wasn't doing generators for that fucking 60 seconds. You know what I mean? The perk is a lot more challengeable now. Because it's like, well, he probably doesn't have it anymore. If I found him 3 feet from the gen that I kicked with Pop Goes the Weasel, it's just gonna be a lot better, bro. This is a very good change that they should really definitely stick with. This should go to PTB. I know a lot of people are saying, oh, it's the unfinished version. Guys, calm your tits. That's exactly what we said about Hex Ruin when it went to PTB. It's not the live version. This is going live, guys. I hate to tell you that. This is going live. This is going to get tested, and it's going to be fine. And they're going to put it in. And there's nothing you can do about it. That small hope you have of this not going live, it's going live, guys. And it's going to be great when it finally gets here. Chapter 19, mwah, can't wait for this shit. It's going to be great. So I enjoy all of your bitching. I enjoy all of your dislikes. I enjoy all of your bitchy comments. Your disgusting perk is dead. If you're being tunneled, you'll get it. If you're not being tunneled, you won't get it anymore. This is an anti-tunneling perk. Let's make it one. This anti-momentum is gone. And if you're going to start DSing the killer, you're going to start sacrificing objective completion time, which makes that 5-second stun mean next to nothing. Have fun, boys. I'll see you in Chapter 19.